You've been doing the work, you've been making progress, you've now taken your midterm, but the work is getting harder, the progress seems like it's coming slower, and you just don't feel like you're going where you want to go. What are you going to do now? Welcome back to the Tummy to Tuck series. I'm Travis Wright-Colopy, Executive Director of Fit and Able Productions, and today we're going to talk about the motivation. We're now just over 6 weeks into this process. You've been doing the work, you've had your plan, you're following it hopefully, you're starting to see some progress over that period, and last week we went over how you're going to score your progress by taking a midterm to assess how far you've come, to see where you have been doing really well and seeing where in other places you might not be doing as well as you had hoped. Hopefully you gave yourself an appropriate test to see where you stand against the plan you had laid out, and you've seen a few places where you can improve or things that you can maintain the course or mix up generally. But now that we've entered the second phase and you're starting to escalate the intensity of your workouts or whatever activities you're doing to progress yourself towards your ultimate goal, that work is now going to get harder. You're going to feel it more every day. And although you have been making some great progress, you're probably going to start feeling like that progress is going to come a little bit slower now. And those two things combined, the harder work, the slower progress, it's going to create a nasty recipe for generally just feeling like you're not making that progress you want towards your goal. The thing to keep in mind though is this is perfectly fine and natural. It's a phase we will all go through as we work towards anything that we really want. As we have discussed multiple times in previous videos, we are really our own worst enemies when it comes to what gets stuck in our head. We always judge ourselves too harshly. We don't see the progress we are making. Just a couple videos ago we talked about if you don't feel like you're seeing the progress in the mirror, go ask someone who hasn't seen you in a while, or people follow the compliments that people give you. They're noticing the difference and they're giving you the feedback even if you aren't seeing it yourself. But sometimes the nice compliments and feedback we get from other people just isn't enough for us to keep going and doing the things we need to do. And so today we're going to talk about motivation. And the motivation we have at this stage of the process, where we are almost halfway through, we're moving through the different phases, is not the same motivation as we were at the start, when all we were looking to do is just get up off the couch and take that first step. Because we have come a long way already, and the baby steps are no longer satisfying. What we are looking for now are those significant strides towards the end goal. If you remember back from one of the earliest videos, when we said, how do you really cement that commitment in your mind to get yourself ready to do the hard work for your goal? And we said, imagine two different versions of your future self. One version of your future self is the default you, the one who didn't do anything, the one who stayed exactly where they were that day and didn't do any work the next day or the day after, and 6 months, a year down the line, they had not made any character development or progress towards being a different person. Then imagine the second version of yourself, the one who did do the work, who did get up every single day, went out for the run, lifted weights, put in some of the extra time at work, gave a little more time or attention to the relationships, whatever the issue in your life was that you're wanting to fix or improve on. They did what they needed to do to get to that goal at the finish line. Then imagine the emotional difference. The one who didn't do the work doesn't have these feelings of success and satisfaction like the other one did, who was successful. They also very likely have the additional disappointment on top of that of being the person who consistently wanted and hoped for things but then never did it, and feeling really disappointed in themselves. However, the other person who did the work has all the joy in the world for their accomplishment. They knew it was tough. They knew they had it in them. They may have doubted themselves along the way, but in the end, they realized, I did it. I could do it, and there are other things in life that I want, and I can do those things too, no matter how hard they might seem right now. If you can imagine those two things, then when you got started, think about it now. But Your position today between those two futures is very different. 6 weeks ago, when you were thinking about those two different future versions of yourself, one of them was basically who you were that day, the one who wasn't doing the work, the one who hoped and dreamed but didn't have what they wanted. That was essentially you when you started. The other version was a fantasy of yourself that seemed really hard to get. But after 6 weeks, where are you? Well, you've left the one person who stayed on the couch in the dust long, long ago. And the fantasy version of yourself, while still out in the future and still seeming like it's just a dream one day that you hope to have, well, you've come a long way to making that dream a reality. And you got to keep that in mind. Whatever you've done so far, and no matter what you have yet to do, you are now somewhere in between those two futures. And now, being in between those two futures, it is very much up to you which one you want. You can really make a clear choice. Do you just stop now, give in to the negative self-doubts that you're not making the progress you want, or the belief that when you look in the mirror, you're not seeing anything different than when you started? You can give in to that, stop today, don't get up tomorrow and do the work, and let all that progress go away. Or you can just be confident that even if you're not seeing the progress that you want, that you have actually made some progress, and you're going to keep doing that, and you'll make whatever progress you are able to for the next 6 weeks. These are the kind of things you should be keeping in mind when you're evaluating yourself with your midterm and looking at what your plan still has for you ahead. Hopefully, it should be a little bit scary for you to think that there's still an opportunity for you in the future to be that person who didn't achieve their goal, especially after all the work you've put in so far. Because at this point, not only will you be that person who didn't achieve the goal, you'll be the person who let all that work they did go to waste. That's a feeling of disappointment that would be really hard to bear, and you should really want to not feel that, and you should really want to do everything you can to avoid having to feel that if you give in today. Another thing to keep in mind at this point is hopefully with the progress you've made, you've sort of developed a sense of where you get your motivation. Some people are very strongly motivated internally. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world around them. They have that drive within themselves to get the work and keep making the progress no matter what is thrown at them. Other people require some more external motivation, something that is beyond themselves that is driving them forward. They may feel personally weak or less motivated internally, that they don't have that innate drive to just get after it themselves, but there's something out there in the world that pulls them along. Some of those external things could be that they just want a lot of money, so they work hard for it, or they want the fame and the accolades, so they do the things that will attract that kind of attention, or they don't really care about health and fitness for their own sake, but they want to look fantastic in their swimsuit at the beach, so they work out all the time in order to do that. Those are things that are outside themselves, because essentially those are things that will get the respect or admiration or the attention of other people. Whatever your motivation is, we're all wired differently. There's no moral judgment here about whether you're internally motivated or externally motivated, or the moral value of whatever it is that drives you forward. That's up to you. But hopefully, with 6 weeks or so under your belt, you should have a better sense of which one of those you are. And you might not be fully one or the other. You could be somewhere in the middle on that spectrum. But you should have a clearer understanding of what is driving you forward. And you should be building those kind of things into your plan and really honing that in order to keep getting those small daily wins. If you are internally motivated, it's probably pretty easy for you. You might not need to do a whole lot. Just the fact of having that goal out in the future waiting for you is all you really need. If you're externally motivated and you're seeing that your pants are starting to fit looser, or you're getting more of those compliments at work or just out with your friends and family, you're going to want to probably get more of those compliments in the future, and that'll keep you working harder. And if you're somewhere in between, it might just be as simple as looking at that plan, the big wall calendar that has your plan laid out, and you can see all the days you've checked off. And it could just be something as simple as you're generally not super motivated to get up out of bed and do the hard workout first thing in the morning, but you can see that calendar on the wall, and you really don't want to have an unbroken chain of days where you worked out. That's your motivation. Kind of like the story I told about Jerry Seinfeld and his unbroken chain of jokes. It's no big secret that the motivational piece to anything is a really tough one. That's why there are so many motivational speakers, life coaches, gurus, self-help books, whatever it might be, out there trying to sell people on the secret to getting motivated and getting after the things they want. Ultimately, it really comes down to just really understanding yourself and being honest with yourself about what drives you forward. And some people can be driven forward. Some people need a little help and get pulled along. But whatever it might be, you need to know it and you need to act on that. So if you haven't really put any thought into that so far in this process, spend an hour and think about what has worked for you the past 6 or 7 weeks. Look at some of those things that made you feel good about what you've done, whether that's a compliment or being able to fit into some pants a bit better, or even the simple pleasure of just being able to pass on a bowl of ice cream and not feeling that compulsion to eat it just because it's there. A little bit of honest self-reflection can lead you to some insights that you can put into your plan, because the work is about to get a lot harder as you increase that intensity. And those gains and the progress you're making may seem like it's coming slower and slower and slower. As you get closer and closer to approaching the point of mastery or attaining your goal, you have to put more and more energy into getting increasingly smaller gains. It's just a really frustrating fact of the universe. So if you're losing weight, once you got the flywheel of your exercise regimen going, those first few pounds probably flew off pretty fast and you're like, making some great progress. But after the first 10 pounds or so, depending on how much you're trying to lose, you might start seeing that progress go from 1 or 2 pounds a week down to maybe a pound or half a pound or whatever it might be. And you just have to start getting really patient with yourself and understand that progress is coming slower because you've already made so much progress already. Anyway, that's what we have on motivation today. Tune in next week for part 8 of the Tummy to Tuck series. And if you're enjoying the content so far, please subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button below or the notification bell so you don't miss out. And if you know anyone who could be helped by this, please share it with them. It would help bring more of an audience to our channel so we can help more people get after the fit and able life they want. So, thank you for joining us today for the Tummy to Tuck series, and we'll see you next week.